How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm super happy to be here.
Yeah, no, this is fun.
Yeah.
So Kyle Phillips, you run one of our product teams. You've been with us now for
A year in like 5 days shortly. Like
oh, really?
yeah, in like a week, it'll be like a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is it 5 days over a year or is it 5 days under a year?
Under a year. I think it was like June 5th was my
Okay.
official start
So
date.
I was gonna say, I don't remember wishing you happy anniversary yet.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I don't think it's hit yet. It's
Yeah.
June 5th. Yeah.
So cool. So if you wouldn't mind, can you give the folks who are watching this a little bit of the story of you and your background and how you got here? That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think to start maybe now and going back, I know our Greg Vesper, right? Our CTO, CPO. And I called him for a reference for another job,
Ah, yeah, yeah,
and he was like, "Oh, hey, I might have some spots here at this company called 90." And, at first I did not have any idea what we did here.
yeah.
But, kind of after talking about it and things, it was pretty exciting, I thought, to come. And the reason it was because if I look at really my background, I had started my own companies. I was always very much just a entrepreneur, kind of got it from my family because they were that.
Yeah.
And, in college, I started my first company, which, was really a lot of fun. And I ran that all the way up till about 2012 when then I exited. And, from that company, I had learned a lot of things of just never knowing how to do marketing,
Mm-hmm.
and but figuring it out,
Yeah.
how to make hard decisions. And then I got into software because the company I started was a camera company, and I had solved a problem out there in the market that people had. But what I found from it was how much I actually liked software more
Yeah.
than physical products, 'cause it was very hard to run a physical product business.
Yeah.
You got inventory and technology changes. But I found through software how fast you could iterate, and it's a lot more flexible. So I moved into, joined a software company and got into product management, which I didn't even know product management was a thing.
Yeah.
It was very new at the time. But what it allowed me to do was to build and solve problems, which is what I love the
Yeah.
most.
Yeah.
So then ultimately, like I said, coming back to now, Greg approached me on this. It really resonated with me because we help people build great companies
Yeah.
through all the different stages of them growing. And I'm like, I've been there
Yeah.
in all those places and I know how hard it is and the questions. And so, I was like, the opportunity to work on some software that could help people do that. I was like, I wish I had this back when I first started in like '05, '06 in my first real company.
Yeah.
And now I'm here and I can't believe it's already been almost a year. It's gone by pretty quick, and we've already done a whole lot of great stuff.
One of the things that I think I've learned throughout, the many decades of company building and leadership and investing in other companies and just getting to know humans is, it's always interesting when there's a really sort of obvious Venn diagram between their personal interests and what they do for a living. And one of the things about you is like, you're not just designing software and building software all the time. You actually have a family, but then you have some other hobbies that I think are pretty design and build centric as well. Share a little bit about that.
Because I like to build, I
Yeah.
like to still work with my hands. I spend a lot of time doing metal fabrication and building cars.
Yeah.
Love cars, I've always have, just how they work and everything. And so I spend a lot of my spare time, which, when I have it, to be working on my car projects, driving some of my cars, spend time out there in the shop to kind of still work with my hands,
Yeah.
and be physical, with it. And yeah, it's one of those things that I wish I could do almost as my job,
Yeah.
but that's a very hard kind of industry to be in, and software, I think, gives me more of that. I get to build a lot of fun things and try different things, right? And it's a little easier to do.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's been cool about having you, and we were literally talking about this before we got in here, right? But is also having you on this team and you being someone who I think is passionate about design right? And so, so when you came on board, we were figuring out, okay, so what's I don't want to call it. Let's call it product development 4.0 probably, right? Because in the beginning it was me and for those of you who've been watching a lot of the podcasts, you'll know that we began with two engineers who I didn't even know were in college. That's a whole other discussion. And I was like really involved in the design, the look and the feel of the product. I was very involved in that in the beginning, and then we brought on engineers, some of whom, like McGregor, who's been with us,
Yeah, he's great.
for a long, long time,
Yeah.
had his own thoughts on design, and so then McGregor got involved, and then we brought on a head of product who I think was more of a just traditional head of product management kind of human. He was interested in design, but not like passionate about it. And one of the stories, I don't know if I've ever told this on the podcast, and hopefully he won't, get mad at me for sharing it. But said, I don't know if you've ever heard the story. I said to him, I'll pay for $25,000 of a Tesla for you. Because I want every day when you get up and you go to work and you think about stuff, for you to see decent software design. Because I thought they did a pretty good job really early on. I mean,
Yeah.
and I don't own a Tesla anymore, so I can't comment on it today. But very early on, I loved not just the look and feel of the monitor that I had, because I had one first year. So I mean, not the sports car, right? But the sedan. I had a
Yeah.
Model S.
Yeah.
Literally within the first year, because I'm an early adopter. I'm one of those guys. So I had a Model S, and what I loved about it was the simplicity, the beauty of the design. But I also loved, like, every now and then, almost every month, you'd walk out and your car would be updated,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So it's the combination of how cool it is to get updates, right? Obviously to do it well, and how cool it is to have great design. And so I literally said, dude, I'll give you and our head of design back then
Mhm.
each 25,000, and he didn't want it. And I was like, wow, right? But design for me has always been super important, probably to the some people's perspectives in the company. I'm too involved, but I deeply
Yeah.
care about it. I love people who deeply care about it, and that's one of the things that's been super cool about having you on the team. When you joined, did we I don't even remember this now. I know it's, just a year now, but in terms of what you were gonna take accountability for, you know, why don't you talk a little bit about when you joined, what you took accountability for, and what you have accountability for today?
Man, when I initially joined,
Yeah.
I was brought on to, be head of product for our productivity team, right? Which was our core tools, right? Pretty much what this company was initially built on, right? Meetings, to dos, issues, as well as what we now call everboarding, which on the time when I joined was onboarding,
Yeah.
which, is all about how do we get somebody onto our product and turn them into uh, a paid customer, an advocate, a promoter of it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I started with.
Yeah.
And, within a short period of time, I ended up getting involved in our mobile initiative,
Yep.
right? Which we'll talk about. So
Yeah.
now, I'm currently acting as the PM right now for our mobile app because it was needed, right? It was one of those things, as well as the head of design right now, leading our team of designers. So
Yeah.
definitely wearing some additional hats
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I didn't expect, but I am a person who, coming back to being a builder, being a problem solver, I will do whatever I can to move a product forward. That's what I do. I like to, see it become successful, and so I will, I think being a good product person as well is you'll fill gaps where you need to get something across the line.
You not only got in there, and as I said, we'll talk about mobile, but okay, I gotta help here, right? Within, like, I wanna say within 3 months of joining, plus or minus, it's like, "Okay, I'm gonna take this thing on,"
Yeah.
right? But you also even took on another idea, which was what we'll call the planning board, which
Yeah.
is which is like, so you had your day job, and then you had these 2 new jobs, and then you had the designer, sort of making sure everybody was, on the same page in terms of design. So you've taken on a lot, and one of the things that you've done really super well, and thank you for, is bring mobile to market. As I think, I've shared before, mobile's been something that people have been, I'll go so far as to say harassing me about
Yeah.
almost since day one, right? And I just didn't feel like we had the resources to do everything we needed to do and mobile to sort of, you know, have the desktop, have the mobile going, all that complexity. I deeply believe less is more until it's not, even though I'm sure most people in the company are like, yeah, right. You've got us doing all this stuff, but I deeply believe less is more until it's not. I try really hard to respect that concept. So definitely one of the most requested, most important features because it's not really a tool on the one hand. On the other hand, boy, oh boy, it certainly feels like a tool. So if you could tell a little bit about sort of, the story of mobile coming to
Yeah.
being.
Yeah. I mean, I think even when I joined, I was like, "Where's the mobile app?"
Yeah.
Right? I
Yeah.
expected there to be a mobile app for something like this,
Yeah.
and, shortly joining, I found a lot of people been asking for it, and it's been a long requested thing, but I think I didn't think about it as, what have you guys been doing? Why don't you have a mobile app? I think it's easy to look from the outside in and say, like, how come somebody doesn't have a mobile app? But the truth is, like, it's right place, right time, and there's lots of priorities going on. There's always more that you could be doing. And so, waiting till you really had it in the position to say, like, we need to have a mobile app now, is the right thing.
Yeah.
So I'm super honored to be kind of right here in the right place at the right time because
Yeah.
I love mobile apps.
Yeah.
I love the design of them.
Yeah.
I love everything that, you can kind of do now with mobile. So to be able to be a part of kind of this whole greenfield of building the mobile app for the first time and taking it to market is something I was super excited about it.
Yeah, and another expression I use all the time, once again, probably to people's like, come on, Abbott, is we're exactly where we're supposed to be, learning the lessons, we need to learn. And if I look back, if we had gone mobile earlier, right, and I'm pretty sure when you got here, if those things had happened, you'd be like, what the is
Yeah.
this, right? So I'm at peace with how long it took for us to get there and super excited about it, but I'm super, you know, I feel fortunate that we didn't get going until you came on board because, well, we both know this because when you came on board and you started working on it, not to diss anyone, right? But the first look and feel that design came up with didn't, like, right? Talk a little bit
Yeah.
about the journey of in the beginning, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think we were, trying to get something out to market and the initial kind of design that came up with it, I think I saw it quickly as, okay, well, I see we're trying to do something, but I started asking the questions. I go, well, what's our real future design? Like where we want to go with this? Because this doesn't look like a mobile app completely, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And, so I started asking questions about that and, saw that we were gonna take too much of a let's not change too much, kind of give what people are used to.
Yeah.
And, I said, "Okay, well, like, that's okay, I guess, kind of. I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to, like, not upset customers,
Right.
fair." But I go, "This is an opportunity because our desktop experience is lacking certain things that customers want as well."
Yeah.
I'm like, "We now have a greenfield opportunity to build something, like, amazing,
Yeah.
and nobody's using it, so we can kinda come up with whatever we want."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "That's a lot of fun."
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Why are we not, like, focusing on that? Why are we not taking this opportunity where people have been waiting, like
Yeah.
you said?"
Yeah. A
So
long
there's
time.
a lot of risk now
Yeah.
because it's like you get your first version out there and people and it fails, people are gonna lose a lot of trust quickly because they're like, "You didn't deliver something that we've been asking for forever."
Yeah.
So, I got involved and I think started, asking more questions. And I had built mobile apps in the past.
Mhm.
I'd done a lot of design. I'd follow a lot of what mobile patterns are, to say, well, like, let's follow just existing mobile patterns. Like we don't have to, we're not reinventing anything. This stuff
Mhm.
exists.
Yeah.
And, let's give something that people are already familiar with it, but let's just figure out what does the core initial app look like but as well as what's the long-term vision for the app,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's too easy to get hung up of just, like, what you gotta get out there initially, and you don't design for the future, and I think we wanted to think about both of those things.
Yeah. Was that easy or hard to get people to sort of play the short and long game and try, and sort of, go back and forth and
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you have to have somebody kind of in the room who has that mentality a bit of
yeah,
like, okay, this is great for now, but then are we still going to be able to get where we want to go long term?
right.
And kind of like remind everybody because I think that there's the people who are executing on stuff and they're trying to do the work and then they're kind of forgetting a little bit about where we're going, and that's okay because they're focused on right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
But then I think it's making sure you have somebody in the room asking the question of like, does this work long term of where we're going? Like, is this putting us into a position where it's going to be really hard to change down the road? Is this the right thing we also want to be building?
yeah,
So, you got to kind of keep being, zooming in and zooming out as you're working on this stuff.
yeah,
I think also we had to get to a design to help people see our vision in the company as well.
yeah,
I think I already had this idea and vision in my head, and once, working with our designers and we iterated on and we iterated every day.
yeah,
I mean, every day we had a meeting and we iterated on this thing. And once we had that, we were able to share it with everybody. And then everybody in the company started really rallying around it. Was like, oh, this is amazing. They started seeing what we were trying to do. They understood it, and we got much more positivity, like feedback from people being like, this is going to be really, really cool. Got people like really excited about
right. And if you look at it, because I know I probably over-index on long term than short term
it.
sometimes. And I know that, early on when you shared it with me, I said, "Oh, this is awesome," right? But then, introduced, maybe it was in your head, let's be honest about it, right? Or maybe it was okay, yeah, yeah, plus, right? But, the whole notion of as we've got it today, the big idea here, it's a task management tool, it's a communications tool, it's an education tool, right? And I'm like, we got to make damn sure that as this thing. So how far, I guess, would your honest answer, right? Because I had a vision for mobile for years and years and years, and then you came in and you worked on it. How far close were we in terms of what I was envisioning and what you were envisioning, and what was that exercise like working with a founder who kind of has some strong opinions
Yeah.
on occasion?
I wanted to make sure I understood, I think, your vision for it, right? And in respect, like, okay, does this play to our vision? Does
Yeah,
this play to our brand? Is this staying true to who we are?
yeah,
It's very easy to go off and build a whole bunch of stuff or new things that are cool, but
yeah,
is it staying like true to us? So, I think working with you was great because I think I was able to bring my ideas, right, and some fresh eyes to stuff and my experience just building this kind of stuff
yeah,
and saying like, hey, you know, here's the problems I think we're going to be solving with this, and here's where we're going to start. And this gives us the opportunity to grow into, more and more, even though it's like we're not going to have all the functionality day one, right? It's something you iterate on.
yeah,
I'm a true believer in getting something out the door.
yeah,
Get something out the door and get feedback on
yeah,
it, right?
yeah,
Quickly. Don't wait too long to have like everything in this big bang. So, I feel like when we iterated on it and we were sharing with you and hearing feedback that, we weren't probably too far
no,
off.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that what I clearly saw that we were going to need to do
yeah,
already aligned with, I think, with a lot of things that was in your head. Because
yeah,
I think some of your initial feedback was, hey, this is awesome.
yeah,
And you're like, here's some things that I would like to see. And, here's some things that didn't make sense to me. Right. And that kind of stuff.
right,
But it wasn't this is completely
yeah.
the wrong direction of what you were thinking.
Knowing my obsessions, I think that it was awesome that I never saw version 1.
Oh, yeah.
Design-wise, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I never even saw it, right? And you were like, "Nope." I mean, basically, right, version 1 just went straight into the old it's funny, I have the vision of, you know, um, Robert Downer Jr. in Iron Man, especially 1, I love 1, right, where he takes the idea, just throws it in the trash,
Yeah.
takes it right,
Yeah.
throws it right in the trash. But nope, we're
Yeah.
gonna get doing this again, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't see that one, which was awesome, I think, because obviously the next version that you were really involved in designing just was like so elegant and simple and intuitive. And And we can get into some stuff that we've learned since then that was unexpected. But yeah, the by the time I started to see it, it was like, this makes a heck of a lot of sense. Were there any other, besides obviously in the beginning, getting everybody on the same page in terms of design, as you brought up, helping people remember the long game, because it's easy for us to get caught up in the short game, and
Mhm.
making sure that we're not going, too far off where it's hard to come back. Were there any other developmental challenges, so sort of like early on, that are
Yeah.
noteworthy?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest challenge was our timeline, right?
Uh, and who came up with the timeline?
I did.
Thank you. Just want to make it clear.
Oh,
This is not asshole
eh,
CEO.
I think coming back to, like you said, our goals and our vision,
Mhm.
we've got some pretty ambitious goals as a company
Yeah.
and fitting your product into that. So I think for me, when I said, okay, well, we want to build something cool, we got to deliver on something that customers been waiting for.
Yeah.
It's got to be great. So we kind of said, like, this has got to be out early in the year. And I know, and just from experience, like, coming out in the new year with stuff and new value for your customers is extremely important.
Yeah.
Customers start looking at other products when they come into the new year. They're thinking about what they're going to be doing for the year. They're making plans on what they're going to spend on. Do they have the right tools? And we wanted to be first out there, making a big splash in the market of, here's all the cool stuff that
Yeah.
90's doing. So
Yeah.
customers immediately feel like we're delivering new things, and we're going to push those other competitors down when they start coming out with the stuff, because they're like, well, 90's already gotten everybody's attention.
Yeah.
So I think I'll put that timeline on us, because I said this is going to be important for us to meet our goals
Yeah.
for the year. We got to get this thing out.
Yeah.
But I also, when I looked around the room at the people I had, I was like, I'm like, we can do this. I'm like, we can absolutely do this.
Yeah.
But we had to iterate quickly, meet constantly, right? It was a constant feedback loop, testing stuff out, making sure it was going to work for us. And so and then to add on to the timeline,
Mhm.
we didn't get a dedicated resourcing for this,
Details.
right? Yeah. We had to say, hey, you got to build that with your existing teams, which are all heavily focused on still working on the core
Yeah.
90
Yeah.
product.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, how are we going to do that? Not to mention cross-functional development across teams as well.
Yeah.
So, bringing all those teams together and getting them aligned, was definitely a challenge, but people were super excited. I think everyone was excited to work on like a new
Yeah.
thing, especially mobile.
Yeah.
So, we getting together and meeting and giving people feedbacks, showing progress, and iterating through it. And we had said what our MVP is going to be. We said, here's the stuff that we want to go to market with, and as we got to our beta timeline, and we didn't have everything that we wanted to have for beta.
Pretty close,
Pretty
right?
close.
Yeah.
Very close.
Yeah.
But, I think people were asking the question to me saying, well, Kyle, is this going to be, we're not going to make it. Do you want to move your beta?
Right.
And that's where you have to take a hard look at your product, right? Depending on whether you're a product person or the founder or whoever, and saying, do I want to still go to market with this? And I said, yeah, why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
I go, some of those features are important. People are going to be asking where those things are probably during the beta, but I'm like, let's just get what we have out now, and let's see what people have to say. The beta is supposed to be kind of where you test it. No one's expecting a polished product.
Yeah.
They're just excited to be a part of it and check it out.
Yeah.
So, we just did it.
And if I recall, I'm sure you know the answer, right? With regard to the original date and the date set for beta, you were within weeks.
I think we pushed the beta just a few days from
Yeah.
our original date. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was like,
yeah. I think it was, we were trying to get the mobile builds up into the store,
yeah.
but, and the team was so awesome. They like did workarounds to just like make it happen, opposed to like our nice automated flows that we have now of deploying new builds. Now, yeah, they're like, well, we'll get it up so we can just hit this date. Right. And that's the kind of people and team, right, you have to make this stuff happen is that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, we were within days of meeting it.
Yeah. And not just within days of meeting it to beta, but you were also, I think, within days of meeting it to GA too, no?
I think we moved it like 6 days. I pushed it out like a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that wasn't even something I was in control of. That
was Apple, right?
That was the App Store.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was, we talked about that was, those are the the worst feeling because I have no control. I'm
Yeah.
at the mercy of Apple's App Store review
Yeah.
of, approving the app. So
Yeah.
we had to just sit there and essentially just hope that it would happen, but we still got it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other notable challenges getting to either beta or to GA, general availability?
I mean, I think the beta, no. I think the with the GA side was like, the challenges was marketing. Your product's only so good. You got to have a really strong marketing campaign. And we came up with, I think, a good marketing campaign. But the challenge was all the details of how do we want to market, through what channels, what's the messaging, how do we get this in front of all of our users, right? We've
Right.
got 250,000 users.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want every single person to somehow know about it.
Yeah.
And I also want to convey the messaging to our customers of, we're unlocking new value for you as well as other employees who are not currently on our product because we know that the companies get the full value of 90 when everybody is using it.
Yeah.
And that was part of the purpose of the mobile app was to unlock new value. It wasn't just giving customers a mobile app and kind of checking the box and saying,
Right.
here, we now have a mobile app. It was, hey, we actually feel there's a value unlock here for you.
Yeah.
And it's going to not just help you, but we think it'll also help all your other employees who we know are not behind a desk.
Yeah.
A number of our customers, they're not sitting in an office. These are people who are on the go.
Yeah.
And we know that mobile is becoming like the primary for people. Younger generations aren't even buying computers.
Yeah.
There's workforces are just mobile only.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so it's like that whole thing, there's this huge opportunity there. And so I was like, I want to make sure we get that messaging right to people so that they see that this is not just trying to hand a mobile app to existing people. It's like, oh, you guys are trying to give us something new to think about
Yeah.
and to use with our entire company.
Yeah. Because a lot of times, we lean towards thinking about making sure that this really makes sense for like the founder, or it makes sense for, the chief operating officer. Some people call, the integrator, or it makes sense for, the whole leadership team for planning purposes and vision sharing and all that. Right. We do tend to have a very, right or wrong, right? We really make sure that we're delivering things that create significant value for the leadership or part of the organization. When you were designing mobile and thinking about mobile, though, who walk us through who were you really thinking about, and how did you balance
Yeah.
the weight of that breadth?
Yeah. I mean, I think w- one was to really talk to all those types of people, right?
Mhm.
We had talked to a lot of different users in different roles, leaders to individual contributors, and a theme emerged really was just, you know, help me gain clarity of like what's most important. And whether you're a leader or you're just an individual contributor, right? That's true.
Yeah.
It's like, I just want to know what I should focus on for my day, what needs the most attention.
Yeah.
So, when we kind of followed that theme, we said, okay, what do leaders really need to be doing in the app? And what does that individual contributor need to be doing in the app?
Yeah.
So that we were able to build an experience where, it didn't matter which role you really had, we made that clear.
Yeah.
So whether you are a leader and you're trying to see what's going on across your teams, you got that clarity.
Yeah.
Or if you're just an individual contributor and you're saying, what is it I'm supposed to be focusing on and what's most important for me to deliver on this week?
Right.
I have visibility into that, right? And so it would fit no matter what, because the leader still needs to do a lot of those things the individual contributor does, right?
Yeah.
But the leader's like, I also have visibility into teams,
Yeah.
right? And one of the things we came up with was more of like a recent activity log of issues. You could see all the issues that have been created recently across all your teams really quickly.
Yeah.
Helping somebody be informed before they go to a meeting of like, hey, what's been going on just recently? Are those my L10s going to be more productive because I'm walking into it with a sense of like what we're going to be talking about? Maybe I've been able to have conversations with people beforehand. So now I come in, help being able to solve that issue way more effectively, opposed to we talked about it. I have to wait till I go talk to somebody else. And then when we come back, we'll deal with this thing because it requires other people. And that's what people kind of want is they want to like kind of get ahead of these things. They want to feel productive. They want to feel like they're moving things forward.
Yeah.
And I think the mobile app is what like gave us that opportunity to create that level of visibility for people so that they felt like they were focusing on the right things and they were doing good work. Because that's what everybody like wants at the end of the day is they want to feel like they accomplished something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How many times have you ever been busy the whole day and then at the end of the day, you're like, what did I do today?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I have that feeling so many times, and I'm like, no, I want to be able to look back at my day, and I want to know that I did the following things. I feel good.
I've said literally since the 80s that I judge every single day. I used to say I judge it when I got into the elevator back in the old days when we used to work in an office, right? Worked in a bank, right? And every single day when I got into the elevator to go home, right? Do I feel good about today,
Hmm.
right? And my perspective has always been if 90% of the time, and this is literally before I fell in love with the word 90, right? But 90% of the time, right? If I can go home and say that was a good day, right? I should be pretty happy with with me and what I'm doing and so yeah, being able to end up every day saying, another one, another one that was 90%. One of the things that I want to hear your thoughts on is, I talk about in work 9.0 that we've now moved into this new age of understanding, right? And I'm curious about, your thoughts on the principles or frameworks that influence the design to ensure clarity and ease of uses. So what were things that sort of, helped you move with confidence?
Yeah. Um, I mean, coming back to design, right? That we love design, right? I'm like a minimalist when it
Mhm.
comes to things. So mobile, it's great because mobile, right? You don't have very much real estate. It needs to be very action oriented. Can't be cluttered, right? You just don't have that type. So I followed that idea of just saying we have to stay simple. Don't make it too complicated, as well as follow existing mobile patterns for design.
Yeah.
This stuff has been designed. There's great designers out there who come up with it. Google, Apple, they've got really great UIs.
Yeah.
So I said, let's not try to introduce our own UI patterns for mobile things that people are already familiar with, right? Everybody knows how an iOS or an Android app should operate. So they're expecting similar behavior.
Yeah.
So I go, if we follow just some of those ideas, someone's going to just intuitively know how to use the app because it looks like their other apps that
Right.
they're doing. So, making sure the navigation is in a position where your thumb can reach it. You don't have to use two hands.
Yeah.
Being able to create an item, right? Global create, make it very simple, swiping type actions, right? It was just use existing stuff, but keep it minimal.
Yeah.
And every time we would add anything to a screen, we constantly challenge whether or not that thing should actually be there.
Yeah.
It's like, is that should be there? Is that even useful or does that just look good?
Yeah.
Are people actually going to find that valuable? So, that influenced everything, like, down to the information, the color, the text, all those types of things. We followed that so that, we'd only put really what people needed
Yeah.
and made it intuitive.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the app was pretty successful at the gate was, people were like, I just see how to use this.
Yeah.
I seem to know where things are at. And it's like that validated that we thought about it correctly, and
I'm not trying to put you in a weird position where you got to pat yourself on the back here when I say this, right? But are you surprised with the level of like, dude, you nailed this
yeah.
early on? I mean, it was like, did you expect it to be this high? Or were you like, I'm coming here and then you actually got like more, I hate to use the term affirmation, right? But where the feedback was like, dude, you nailed this.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I've built a lot of bad products. I've done a lot of bad
We all.
design, right? And
Yeah.
so I felt confident that we had designed something great.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this feels good. I think the functionality that we designed for it was the right thing. I'm like, hey, seeing, talking to people and showing some of our early designs right before we actually had anything working.
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel confident, right? But yeah, that's a small subset of customers, right?
Yeah.
And people. And so when it got out there and nobody was coming really with negative feedback,
Right.
I'm like, is the app actually working? We're looking at our stats of who's using it. I'm like, are
Yeah.
these correct?
Yeah.
Maybe this isn't actually reporting on stuff correctly.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, we weren't getting any bad feedback of like, this design is crazy.
Yeah.
The feedback we got was, this is awesome. People have been saying, we've been waiting for this forever. This is great.
Yeah.
And then people were saying what they wanted to see next,
Yeah.
and I'm like, this is great feedback,
Yeah.
right? And, we got some negative feedback here and there, but it was pretty small, right?
Yeah.
And, I make it a point that any feedback left in the store or anything like that, I respond to.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether it's good or bad,
Yeah.
because I think that also shows to other people looking at us, you care about what
Yeah.
users are saying.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, I was like really, really surprised and really, really happy,
Yeah.
but then when I think about it, I go, I shouldn't be so surprised. We focused on this thing so hard.
Yeah.
We met, like I said, we met every day
Yeah.
and we iterated through the design. And we would show up one day, come up with something. Next day we would come and be like, that doesn't make any sense after we designed it the day before. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, change this thing
Yeah.
constantly. So I'm like, what? We did the work, we did the grind, and we validated it. And then I think people using it and saying, this is great. It's like, this is awesome. I think it provides a level of validation where it's like, follow that same thing with other stuff too.
Yeah.
And that will be good as well because what you followed worked.
Yeah. From a leadership perspective, curious if, how you manage this. So as someone who is extraordinarily comfortable with change to the point of where if I have an idea on Tuesday and additional data comes after that idea, and such that by the time I wake up on Wednesday, my brain's already been processing Tuesday, and part of the journey I had during sleep was there's issues that don't make things that I just don't think make sense anymore. That's how my brain works, which is unfortunate sometimes. Um, the next morning, it's like, hey, right? I know we said this, but right. My experience has been as a leader that some of us are comfortable with change and trashing things that we've worked on. And as the founder and significant shareholder of this company, I'm like, hey, if I'm okay with the fact that we wasted it's not really waste because we learned a lot,
Mhm.
right? But I'm okay with dumping. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm very comfortable with dumping, but I've found that most people aren't. So how did you manage that part of this process, and how do you, generally speaking, as a leader, manage dumping stuff that people have put their heart and soul in? And sometimes it's like, and you know, we're all creators. Every single one of us is a creator. I talk about this a lot, right? How we participate in the creative process is different. Some people are big picture idea people. Some people are like, oh man, take it into reality. Some people are like, hey, have you thought about how this is going to feel, how this is going to resonate, right? So they really understand the emotional side. And then some people are like, hey guys, that's all really cool, but you realize if you do that, you've just destroyed all this other stuff that we've been working on forever.
Mhm.
So you got the thinkers, the feelers, the doers, and the critics, right? The guardians that you want to involve in the creative process to make sure that you've seen all the angles. So as a leader, when you go through a process like you've just gone through, how do you get the team to get comfortable with change and comfortable with, yeah, I know it's okay.
Yeah.
We throw something away.
I think part of like being like they said, being a good leader is probably getting them to understand like the why behind, why maybe something's not going to work,
Yeah.
right? I like to constantly come back to what are the objectives and the goals we're having. So when we do something like that, if all of a sudden it's like I have that moment where I'm like, actually, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And it's like, well, it doesn't make sense because it doesn't actually align to where we're going. It was a good idea, but we forgot about the big picture. And it's like, okay. And so I think I try to, if I have that, I try not to just tell, I think somebody saying, hey guys, like, this is not going to work. We're trashing this thing. Right. And then everyone's like, why? And it's like, well, I just want to.
Right.
Right. I think I try to explain the why behind it. It's saying, this doesn't actually align to our goals, guys. Our goal is this, right? It's like, okay, well, does this align to the goal? I don't think it does. Anybody else think so? And everyone's like, well, yeah, it doesn't. It's like, okay. And then it's like, well, we spent all that time. Well, it's like, that's okay. We realize this one thing, but I go, but what if we had sent this thing out? It wouldn't have worked.
Right.
So did you guys, I mean, we don't want that either.
Right.
So I'm like, we now we're kind of learned from that experience. And so I think kind of explaining some of that to people, telling them that what we built, maybe the work we did, it wasn't bad work.
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, we built something, but it's not the right thing.
Right.
I'm like, you got to iterate on something, right? Like continuously to build something great. I mean, that's how everything has gotten built. Nothing great has gotten built just in its first form. Like somebody has practiced something. Like
Yeah.
you gotta be really bad at something before you can be great at something. And so you have to keep trying.
Yeah.
And I think you gotta be willing to fail. Like I said, I've built a lot of stuff that has failed.
Yeah.
And that's how I figured out like what works is by keep failing at it. And you mentioned like my hobby for cars. I'm like, I kept screwing up constantly. Something doesn't work. I haven't put a car back together the right way.
Yeah.
Doesn't run. Whatever it might be, my
Yeah.
measurements are off. And that's how. And it's like, well, why did that happen? But it's like not feeling like I've thrown something away and it's like feel bad. It's like, no, I realize what I did wrong there, and that's okay. And I think telling everybody that that it was okay. And I think not putting somebody down or
Yeah.
saying like, this is your fault
Yeah.
that,
100%.
and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think trying to take it as, this is a learning experience, and it's like, let's understand it, move on.
Yeah.
Let's work on the next thing that we know is like actually what the right thing is.
Just because, it's called the Founders Framework, and we talk about, lessons for founders all the time here. Was it easy to get the team to like shift into being comfortable with throwing stuff away, or did it take some time?
No, I think that they were pretty comfortable with it.
Yeah.
I think part of the reason that they're comfortable is if they have a good leader,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They're looking to their leaders for confidence that what we're doing is the right thing,
Yeah.
right? And so I think if you go to the table with it and you show that, hey, this isn't the right thing,
Right.
it's okay, we're going to throw it away.
Yeah.
And I think doing all the things like I just talked about, I think people get comfortable pretty quick with it.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, I feel good about this.
Yeah.
Maybe some of them already didn't think it was the right thing,
Yeah. But just
but
uncomfortable sharing it.
uncomfortable sharing it because they're maybe afraid to say to the person who's confident in the room about where we're going that I don't think this is a good idea.
Right.
Sometimes it's hard to challenge.
Or,
Sometimes,
or you're calling someone else's work less than perfect.
yeah, you're saying something isn't a good design.
Yeah.
And some people can take that stuff like very personal.
Yeah.
When somebody says this thing's terrible.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But I think that's where I try to create an environment
Yeah.
with the people I work with
Yeah.
that I'm like, you can tell me if you don't think something right now. No, do it respectfully.
Yeah.
Do it
Yeah.
professionally,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You don't have to be like rude.
Yeah.
But I try to create that where people feel like they could say it and I'm not gonna be like, don't say anything. This is not your role.
Yeah.
Just do what I tell you
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
It's like, no, look, I want everyone here to be a part of the collaboration ideas. I want you to say if you think this is not the right idea. And we had some moments like that with mobile where we wanted to have headlines and we had an initial design for it of how we wanted headlines to look.
Right.
But, we faced some challenges with actually making it work.
Yeah.
And the team came up with the idea of like how it should be working and in the app as it
Yeah.
is right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Right. And they came to the table with the solution. They didn't come to the table and say like, oh, we're looking for you to come up with a different solution here.
Yeah.
And that's what I want.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say, hey, look, here's what we got to have, but like come to the table with ideas and they did.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of environment I want because I don't know have all the right answers.
Right.
I'm just trying to lead us in the direction overall of like what we're trying to get to, but I need everybody else to be a part of this. Can't do it can't do it myself.
Yeah. How many folks were in the team?
Oh, wow. We had, if you're talking all the product engineering designers, if you're talking marketing as well, if you're talking about like the whole thing,
Right.
it was there was probably somebody from almost every department in this company,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To getting it built, getting it marketed correctly, ensuring that, support knew how to use it.
Yeah.
I had support people pitch in to help with the beta because it was a little bit of there were some manual steps to actually give somebody access to the beta app, and we didn't have automation built. We didn't have time to build some of that.
Yeah.
So I had some support people. I trained them up, and they were like more than willing to say, yeah, we'll handle every single request come through to get beta access to somebody. And they did like over 500 users manually
Yeah.
doing it. So everybody contributed to
Yeah.
the success of
Yeah.
the app. But I think almost everybody touched this thing
Yeah.
in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. Crazy. Where are we now in terms of, so we got version 1 done.
Mm-hmm.
You have a vision. We're here. We want to go here. It's not a straight line,
Mhm.
right? There's zigging and zagging as we go to here. We've got, like, I'll call it the Northern Constellation, right? We've got these things that guide us, right? Where's your head in terms of listening versus doing? And, a lot of people in software hate the concept of waterfall and roadmaps, um and I think we actually have a very healthy, I believe that we have a very healthy culture around agile versus waterfall versus roadmap, right? We have vision, we have what we have data. So walk us through your thoughts right now on listening and how we play the game.
The idea, right, was to get the first version out here that we felt good about,
Yeah.
and then to really listen to the market. We have ideas of what we know. I have a few things that I'm really excited about. We're going to be bringing this whole communication side, collaboration side to the app,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which is the other app. Right? We've got the strategic plan, we got the productivity, we got that kind of stuff
Yeah.
going. The other side of this is that. But I think right now it's to really listen to what people have to say and what they're doing in the app to help like guide us to ensure that like that kind of stuff is going to be the valuable thing.
Right.
So I think making sure we have those feedback loops from customers and even internal people, anybody in the market to ensure that we are doing the right things, but then look for opportunities for small wins. I think we've already pushed out a couple of little tiny enhancements on the mobile app just very quickly,
Yeah.
just little things
Yeah.
that were like just get them out there and keep like improving it bits by bit. It doesn't have to be like these waterfall type things as well, you have your big stuff too, but having that. So, I think really listening to it as well as staying focused on of like, well, the long-term vision for this product is this.
Right.
We still have our desktop app,
Yep.
right? We got a mobile app.
Yep.
I don't want those to completely go off in different directions.
Right.
So it's like making sure that what we're going to do in mobile still aligns with what our desktop strategy is so that somebody doesn't matter, if somebody's using our product, it feels like a seamless experience. They feel like it's the same, they can do what they need to do. Doesn't matter which platform they're actually using. So I think keeping my ear close to the market is extremely important, and I think, the next stuff coming up is super exciting. The communication collaboration side of the app
Yeah.
is going to be big for us
Yeah.
because we want people doing that in the app,
Yeah.
right?
So one of the things that um, I want to use past tense, but I think it's not fair to reality. Is that we're literally in the middle of transitioning from a company that um, uh, wasn't the velocity of improvements to the app, um, generally speaking, was relatively slow. And I know that's not an atypical comment from a founder slash CEO, for a couple of years. And then you guys, the new team, came on board and started to make things happen. And then all of a sudden, like, a lot of stuff's getting released, to the point where we actually got feedback from our clients that you guys are making changes too
Yeah.
fast,
Yeah.
right? And so we agreed as a senior leadership team that we're going to move into what I call, from an internal perspective, a 5-quarter way of looking at the world. And that meaning that, okay, so we have 5 quarters in front of us. First one on the left is the one we just had, making sure, right, we all know what we said we were going to commit to, and that and how we did. And historically, we've been like 90% plus in terms of hitting our commits, which is like, I mean, for years, really, really good at that. Then we got, okay, this is what we're working on this quarter. Then we got, this is what we're going to work on next quarter, and then next quarter and next quarter. So you got 5 quarters in front of you. And then we said we need to do this just so we all are generally aligned with regard to where we're going. Once again, there's always this tension between waterfall and roadmaps and agile. so we agreed to do that, and then what we said was, because of our customers really having this, we love you guys making improvements, but you can't just keep jamming them, in front of us all the time. We're, especially like coaches and integrators, you're like, hey, I got to know about this stuff when it's coming in, so I can help my people um, deal with the great changes. But it's change is change. So now we're in this transition to, we make we address issues like bugs and right and
Yeah.
and whatnot continuously. I mean, like, we are now continuous deployments. And then what we want to do is we want to move to every month we'll tell people about some minor stuff, and then once a quarter, like, like the big stuff, we'll let people know. And we're not only going to do that, but we're actually giving our clients a sense for what's coming down the road. So like, oh, right. So they've got a sense for this. So if someone's like, well, why, I want you guys to do this, this, and this. And we're like, hey, yeah, that's actually on a roadmap. And so we're showing our clients now, this is what we said we were going to do every quarter, right? We'll update. This is what we said we were going to do. This is what we did. This is what we got going on this quarter. And this is what we got going on in the outer corners. We're not giving them the full the details, because they don't need it. They don't want it.
Right.
Right. But we're in that transition now, because we're still doing a little bit of, you know, um, non-bugs weekly updates. And the challenge is not just, there's obviously products involved, but product marketing's involved. There are a lot of people involved in making sure that people are aware of what's going on. So we're committed to moving to this what I'll call this continuous for bugs and really super minor things, monthly or quarterly. What you know what can users look forward to that you're comfortable sharing in terms of what's up next?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, we're gonna be working on this whole communication collaboration side of the app, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even in the desktop app, people have been saying, how come we can't really communicate more inside,
Yeah.
right? So, we're working on this whole thing of, notifications,
Yeah.
in-app, app mentions,
Yeah.
push notifications, and an activity feed, which we want to actually do in both mobile and desktop,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, you can easily see what's going on. You don't have to go fishing in the app for everything going on, right?
Yeah.
We have all this information. All these companies are putting all this cool information into our system, right? But if you don't know how to really get at it,
Yeah.
it's not
That's the
it's not
power of the system.
yeah, exactly, right. So having an activity feed that really more informs people of what's going on, and then they can also communicate with each other within the app, is going to be really the next big thing for us, I think, to make our app really, really valuable
Yeah.
to people, and also have those conversations, more within the app on the issues that they're having, which we know they're just having them outside right now, but they're not linked.
Yeah.
And it's hard then when you're trying to talk about things and bring people together,
Yeah.
opposed to just having it in the app on the issue. So the communication side, we talked about, we're currently looking at bringing in elements of the scorecard.
Mm-hmm.
We had some ideas that people might want something like that, but we've already got a lot of requests for it. People saying, I'd love to see some scorecard,
Yeah.
not the whole thing.
Right.
That doesn't really work.
Yeah.
But, people want to watch some of their KPIs.
Yeah.
So is there a view of components of the scorecard? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
As well as a knowledge portal.
Yeah.
Right? People need to be able to access documentation and training type material out in the field, not at their desk.
Yeah.
So we think that we can bring in some of that functionality so that it's like a well-rounded app.
Yeah.
And then I think there's some really cool stuff that we could probably do with Maz.
Yeah. We haven't talked about it at all.
We haven't gotten into it, but I
Yeah.
think that,
I'm talking here right now. Yeah.
Yeah,
We're talking about
we're
it.
talking about it. Yeah, but
not-
we didn't really
not
touch
here.
on what it could
AI?
do in the mobile
Yeah.
side. But, everybody's using, right, these ChatGPT and Gemini and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And we're working on a pretty cool AI thing right now ourselves.
Yeah.
With already some cool things. So I think that on the mobile side, there's some stuff we can do with that will just unlock a whole bunch of value for customers and will make their lives at their jobs like even a more enhanced experience, I want to say, than anything.
We could go down a lot of, right?
Yeah.
But just it's interesting, just the idea of, hey, you're running in you're running around, you're running into your senior leadership team meeting, right? And you're like, "Hey, Maz, right? What are the big issues that are on the docket for today?" Or, "Hey, Maz, is there anything KPI wise that I should be like focusing on that's different or revealed itself
Mhm.
within the last week, right?" And it's just like boom, right? It's right there, and then if you think 3, 4, 5 years from now, right? It's gonna be really, really interesting in terms of like we talk about mobile right now, not to be freaky on you, right? But we talk about mobile right now from a hardware perspective,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
5 years from now, right? What is, right? When form factor, right? So,
Yeah.
5 years from now, we may have a conversation. This conversation may be around mobile in a way we never even right
Right.
envisioned,
Yeah.
especially with the help of AI. So, getting untethered from the desktop to now to a lighter version of hardware, and then ultimately to who knows what is really like I this as designers and builders. I know you and I are aligned on all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
This is what's super bloody fun,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, you're just, like, pioneering new ways of things,
New
right?
ways of
Yeah.
it's like Greg and I, our CTPO, were chatting yesterday. And, I always struggle a little bit with, people like what's 90 and we help people, to build extraordinarily productive, humane, and resilient organizations. Yeah, but it's more than that, right? We help people understand what's working and what's not working. Yeah. We help people navigate the unavoidable stages of development. Yeah. But really fundamentally, we're this platform that reduces the friction associated with, just having a really comfortable level of growth. And for some organizations, right, that could be 30 or 40 or 50% a year. For
Yeah.
other organizations, it's 2, 3, 4, 5%, right? We either grow or die. But fundamentally, right, we're a growth platform. We're just trying to figure out how to continuously reduce the level of friction associated with you growing
Yeah.
because we know that, things either grow or die,
Yeah.
right?
Right. I mean, I think what, coming back to when, I had my first company,
Yeah.
and as I'm growing, trying to figure out, should I hire some people?
Yeah.
Should I buy that building?
Yeah.
Should I invest that money in the next iteration of the product? That isn't cheap, right?
Yeah.
I wish almost I had like a chat GPT type of AI thing to talk to that somehow knew everything about my business and that I could say, well, my goal is this.
Yeah.
What are the things maybe I should focus on? And it could just tell me, right? It's like, if you dumped all the information about our company into like an AI
Yeah.
and you said, hey, tell me what are the biggest problems we have, it's going to be able to tell you quickly.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the kind of feedback people want and they want to know
Yeah.
because it's so hard to take all the information. We got so much information coming at us nowadays, right? You
Yeah.
get so distracted
Yeah.
with everything.
Yeah.
It's like, you just want to be able to kind of get that clarity.
Yeah.
And I see that being like a huge opportunity for us where, if we can do that for customers, it can tell the customer, "Hey, here's the things you probably should be thinking about
Yeah.
if you wanna keep growing."
Oh, and by the way, based upon where you are right now, I like to say, Maz will say, "I'll bet you 2 months worth of software, right?
Yeah.
That these are the 7 issues you're dealing with, and if 5 of these are correct, right, I don't know you." And you're like, Shit, how'd you know?" And it's
Yeah.
because, as you said, we have all this data. We've structured it. A lot of it's unstructured traditionally, but we've structured what is prior to now unstructured data. And so now it's just a question of, of back to the growth platform notion. How do we take, leverage all that we have because you've played the game with us to help you navigate the moment you're in? Strategy, as I like to say, it's really simple.
Mhm.
It's about win the game you're playing
Right.
and then make sure that the game you're playing makes sense in terms of where you want to take this thing in, 5, 6, 10, 20 years, whatever, however you want to play it. But it's just like win the current game, make sure that you're set up to win the next game,
Yeah.
right? That's it.
Yeah.
right? So we're here to help people win the game they're playing,
Yeah.
and make sure that the game that they're playing is one that they can continually be a part of because, it's one thing to go, and I got to give, my buddy, my son Cole credit for this one, right? It's like, if you love playing a game and you're all about just winning it, but then no one invites you back to play the game,
Yeah.
right? That sucks,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
You don't want to just win the game. You want to win being able to win the game forever and to be invited back and continue to play because you love playing the game,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is really, that's the right way to be thinking about it. And I think coming back to it, how many people, founders, right, they just found a problem and they tried to build a business off it, right?
Yeah.
And they don't know anything else about building businesses. Some just fall into it
Yeah.
and they don't know. And that's where I feel like we can help,
Yeah.
is helping them understand like their growth, and how many founders you found that they don't really have a vision, like a goals, like they have an idea,
Yeah.
but you say, well, where do you really want to go long term? They're like, well, I don't really know
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I kind of tell you,
Yeah.
but if you help them get that clarity, then the steps to that become a lot clearer because you know what your target is, you know what you're aiming at.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's the type of thing to really help, and where to put your resourcing and your time.
Given that this is where you're going, given that this
Yeah.
is where you are developmentally, given everything that's going on now, I think we started this conversation around focus.
Yeah.
It just enables you to more confidently focus,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And work on the things that matter at this moment in time and be able to be at peace with the fact that there's a lot of stuff just like on our roadmap. We're not going to hit for, I mean, last question for you,
Yeah.
right? Before we do closing thoughts is, and I didn't prepare you for this one, right? How far out in your brain right now do you have kind of a decent sense for what needs to be done?
I think from a product standpoint, a couple years,
Yeah.
probably 2027,
Yeah.
even early 2028.
Yeah.
I have an idea
Yeah.
of, based on where we think we're going,
Yeah.
what the product needs to look like.
Yeah.
All the little pieces that go to it,
Yeah.
not sure.
Yeah.
But it's like I have this idea of what we would evolve to
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
and that the journey it would take to get there, I could see how long.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably a few years out at least of what I want it to look like. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm pretty clear all the way to 2030 these
Yeah.
days. And I'm looking forward. I know in our quarterly, right, it's all saying, okay, so here's here, here's here, here's here, here's here, here's here. And then just manifesting that dream and turning it into reality like you've already done so far is just that's
Yeah.
the super fun, cool stuff.
I mean, I think you got to get like excited about the journey of what you're trying to get to,
Yeah.
even if you're not sure how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
Right. The road's not clear
Yeah.
because you're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
People have already done it. So I try to get excited about the idea, and then it's like, how are we going to get there and how are we going to solve the problems that come along with it? And what else we're going to find along the way.
Yeah.
Right. Because other things come in,
Yeah.
it's not a straight line.
Yeah.
So you end up kind of market changes. We see how things, how the whole world can change sometimes,
Yeah.
like on a dime.
Yeah.
And, that can change then what you do.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden people are in need of something different.
Yeah.
So, that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Is you're not completely sure.
Yeah.
And, so I'm excited by it,
Yeah.
and I'm excited by the fact we get to help a lot of people build companies.
Yeah.
And solve these kinds of problems and see them prosper, right? And get where they want to go.
Yeah.
Is like a good feeling.
Yeah.
Feels like we're creating like real like value for people.
Yeah.
Right? Like really providing something that like is helping the world, ultimately grow. So it's pretty cool thing to be able to work on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool, right? Because ultimately, it's, maybe I talk about too much, but for the society to be healthy, we need great small and mid-sized businesses because they're the ones who are constantly helping us innovate and think about, dealing with the issues because these issues are always evolving. And so, small and mid-sized businesses are, I believe they're the lifeblood of a healthy society. improving the percentage of those businesses that are actually flourishing to me, and then flourishing means that everybody involved, right, all the ideal stakeholders are like they actually like playing the game
Yeah.
and they're enjoying the game together, and they enjoy who they serve and how they help. And so yeah, I love what we do, and I really deeply appreciate
Yeah.
like having you in this on this
Thank you.
journey with us. And like mobile was, as I said, um, hard to say it's exceeded expectations because you never, yeah, I'm a karma guy, but man, you guys exceeded
Thanks.
expectations, and it's just been so cool to watch.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate you letting me join this organization and entrusting me to work on some of this stuff, right? That's also a big thing for founders and trust, right? Is letting somebody else work on
Yeah.
things that you started
Yeah.
and feeling like, it's they're gonna keep going in the direction that you want to go. And I'm like super grateful to work with a bunch of great people here who all want to build great stuff as well,
Yeah.
and they're not here just because it's a job.
Yeah.
They're here because they're like, this has meaning
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of people, environment I like to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. This was great.
All right.
So.
Cheers.